Should be for sure. Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, and it's my real privilege to welcome all of you to the ACSI Teacher Enrichment webinar. And it's such a joy and a privilege for us in the office to host these events, to just be in contact with our teachers and part of their lives. So for those of you who've taken the time out this afternoon to join us, may God bless you, may you be enriched this afternoon. And may it just resonate in your spirit, and that you take something away from this afternoon's teaching. We've got teachers from all over the country. It's wonderful to have this kind of platform where we can reach far and wide, and we've even got teachers from Zimbabwe, so a special welcome to you. And even in our last webinars, teachers from Botswana and Eswatini. So it's such a joy to welcome all teachers, and especially to those teachers who may not be part of ACSI schools. You are so welcome to be part of these events, and we also trust that you will take something away from this afternoon, and feel free to join us in the future events that we host. A real delight for me this afternoon to introduce our guest speaker, Judy Klippen, and I'll bring her onto the screen in a minute, and I'll introduce her in a minute, but we are so grateful that she's been able to join us this afternoon, and I look forward to what she's got to share. Just a couple of things. We will, based on the registrations today, allocate SACE points to each of you, and the office will send you a certificate in the next couple of days. And where we can, we will submit those points for you on your behalf, but otherwise you can use your certificate to submit your own points. We're just going to do a quick poll like we normally do, just to find out where you are. And also, we also have had some requests around the timing of these events. So there's a question, and I'm going to launch the poll now. So if you wouldn't mind just letting us know where you are, and then also indicate which time suits you the best. And if we find that there's an overwhelming need to change the time from 2 o'clock, then we will certainly do that. So please feel free just to answer those. I'll keep those on for a couple more seconds. Thank you for doing that. And then we're also live on Facebook, and we will have a recording of this event for you that you can watch again later, or that if you know of people, maybe some of your colleagues at school didn't get a chance to be part of this afternoon, that will be available for you, and we will advertise that from the office. The office staff will do that. After my welcome and introduction of Judy, I'm going to hand it over to Judy, and she's going to then just do her presentation or her discussion for about 35 minutes. Then you'll have an opportunity to ask some questions, and often that's where a great amount of the learning happens, through the questions. So please, you've got the opportunity on Zoom to ask questions, or if you've got a statement that you would like to make, please feel free to do that. And we'll then, for the last 10 or so minutes, 10, 15 minutes of the webinar, go through those questions and ask Judy to answer them for you. So I'm just going to, quite a few of you are still just voting. I'm going to, in a couple of seconds, just get rid of that poll. Thank you for doing that. The last comment is just, this is now a regular occurrence every Thursday. You would have seen on the presentation prior to this, and I'll put the presentation back up again afterwards, that have a look at the future webinars that we're hosting. And we're also very excited about our first parent webinar that we're going to be hosting later on in the month as well. So keep an eye on our Facebook, on our website. And as I said, you are welcome. You're welcome to invite anyone to come and join us in these webinars. So I'm going to bring Judy onto the screen and welcome her. It's again such a privilege to have Judy with us. There's Judy. I first got to know Judy as we were preparing our Restore conference, which was scheduled for the beginning of the year. And Judy was going to come and speak to us largely on burnout and this concept called compassion fatigue, which is the first time I'd heard about it. So Judy specializes in change, in transformation, in effective lifestyles, in resilience, and helping people, leaders, teachers, anyone with the coping skills and the strategies to actually manage that. Judy has a BA and a HDip Ed from WITS. She has an MSc on social sciences from the University of Leicester. She's a transactional analysis practitioner, and she's a registered master coach. Judy's also an author, and you would have seen 2 of her books that we advertised on the screen. And I would encourage you, often this concept of burnout, we always deny that we're not burning out and we're not tired and we're coping. Yet I'm sure that Judy's going to give us some skills. So please feel free to get hold of those books if that's going to help you. But Judy spends her time just helping organizations, helping groups, helping individuals, helping schools, not only with things like team building and strategy, empowering leaders and people on just patterns of thought and behavior. But she also deals with this very difficult concept of, as I mentioned, burnout, of boundaries, and of balance. And generally, it's well-being. And Judy, your timing of this webinar has just been so good, because we're experiencing our teachers exhausted. They've been on the go since March, many from January, and it's just been a difficult season. And I just want to take this time to honor the teachers. My gosh, you have just been amazing in your schools, just your resilience, your ongoing, teaching online and at school. And but I'm just, together with a whole group of us, just really concerned about the well-being of teachers. So I'm really trusting, Judy, that you're going to be able to help our teachers this afternoon. Just reflect a little, because we need them to be strong as they lead our youth going forward. So again, it's just such a timeless thing. So this afternoon, Judy's going to help us with a concept that she's termed COVID fatigue, and then look at compassion fatigue as well, and help us with those resilience skills that we so need. So I'm going to pray for Judy and for all of us, and then I'm going to hand over to Judy, and we look forward to what she's got to share. Let's just pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this amazing technology that can allow hundreds of us to meet together, to be enriched, to be encouraged, to be challenged, and for many of us to be healed, Lord. So I just pray your presence in every venue that's reflected this afternoon. May you just speak to each of us through Judy this afternoon. Thank you for these teachers, Lord, who are doing such an amazing job through difficult circumstances. Lord, I just pray for your strength for them, your energy, your wisdom, your guidance for each and every one of them. Lord, protect them and provide for them for a great call that they have on their lives. And then, Lord, won't you just speak through Judy this afternoon? Bless her, Lord, for her generosity to be with us. Love her and encourage her as well, Lord. And may her words be your words as they reach out to every single one of us. So why don't you just be with us, all of us, this afternoon in this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. There we go. Judy, over to you. I'm going to disappear and then I'll come back when you're done. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean. So, hi, everybody. It's lovely to be here under, as Sean was saying, extremely difficult circumstances. And before we get started, I just also wanted to say thank you from my perspective to all of you for the work that you are doing, because I know that you've all been working really tirelessly and often in a very confusing time. Are we going back to school? Aren't we going back to school? And I think that it's very, very exhausting to be living in so much uncertainty generally in the world at large, but also then in your own microcosm. So I really did just want to honor that and to say that I hope that we can create some kind of an oasis of peace and calm for you today, and to give you some really practical ideas about how you can be looking after yourselves going forward. So I'm just going to see if, oh dear. Sean, is it possible for me to share my slides? I should have checked that with you before you disappeared. Sean, are you there? Oh dear. Okay, no slides. All right, that's a bit of a pity because they're so pretty, my slides.
No, you can.
Oh, good. Excellent. Thank you. It says host disable the attendee screen sharing. I mean, I am a co-host now. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, thank you. So here we go. All right. So here we are. This is the presentation, which I will just do here. All right. Resilience for educators and school-based therapists. I'm not sure if any of you were at my session that I did at the Lantern School last year in about October, but if you were there, then this is going to be pretty similar, although obviously updated to include the COVID fatigue stuff. So just before we start, I'm going to ask you to do what I ask all of my clients and all of my workshop participants to do. And that is to check in with yourselves. So we're so busy, we're running around, we are rushing, looking after everybody, trying to get everything done. And we often, and I think teachers are particularly bad at this, forget to check in with ourselves and to just see what it is that we are needing. So right now, as you are sitting or standing or doing whatever it is that you are doing while you're listening to this seminar, I want you to just think about what you are feeling. So what are you feeling physically? What are you feeling emotionally? Are you hot? Are you cold? Are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you thirsty? Do you have a headache? Are you anxious? Are you stressed? What are you feeling right now? And you can just take a couple of seconds to think about that. Okay. And once you have identified what you are feeling, I want you to, oh my goodness, sorry, I want you to ask, why am I feeling this way? So maybe I'm hot because I'm wearing too many layers. Maybe I've got a slight headache because I haven't had enough water to drink today. Maybe I'm hungry because I haven't eaten anything. Maybe I'm stressed because I really want to listen to this seminar, but I also have got so much else to do and I'm in a quandary about where I should be. Okay, so just think about why you are feeling this way. And then lastly, ask yourself, what do I want to do about it? So maybe you are hot because you are wearing too many layers, because you got up this morning and it was literally freezing and you haven't had a chance to think about it up till now. So maybe you want to take off a layer or two. Maybe you want to drink a glass of water. Maybe you want to have something to eat. Maybe you want to ask for some help. If you're feeling stressed, maybe you want to think about how you can, if you're stressed about being on this call and worrying about everything else that you have to do, maybe you can think about just being on this call and allowing yourself time this afternoon to do whatever it is else that you need to do. But those 3 questions, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And what do I want to do about it? I'll just talk to you about that quickly. They're really useful, I think, to bring people back to themselves, and to really just stop and take stock of where we are at in our own lives. Because at this time, when we are in so much overwhelm and stress and anxiety, a lot of us are putting all of our energy and attention into looking after other people, into looking after the people around us. And we forget to look after ourselves. And so these 3 questions are a very quick, simple way to get you to think about yourself and to identify what you need to be doing for yourself. So I hope that was a little bit helpful for you. And I really recommend that you do that 2 or 3 times a day at least. Okay. Next slide. Oh my goodness, sorry. I'm learning all of this technology. Okay, so what I wanted to talk to you about today was compassion fatigue, but also what I call COVID fatigue. So COVID fatigue, let me just start, is a response to the situation that we are finding ourselves in. This situation of having this pandemic thrust upon us. We haven't chosen it. We have no say over how long it lasts or how it manifests. We are having to juggle all sorts of difficult things. We manage working from home, managing children, managing housework, managing remote learning, and also some of you are back at school already. There are a whole lot of unusual demands that are being placed on us. Over and above the anxiety, the fear of the unknown, the fact that the carpet has been pulled out from underneath all of us. And so I call it COVID fatigue because I started to notice quite early on into our lockdown that many people were displaying the same symptoms that people display when they have got compassion fatigue or burnout. And I'll tell you what those symptoms are in a moment. And even though the cause of those symptoms was very different, the symptoms are the same. So when we get compassion fatigue or burnout, which I'm going to get into just now, there's a very particular reason why we get both compassion fatigue and burnout. And I'm going to be focusing on compassion fatigue today, which is a part of burnout. But those causes of compassion fatigue are not the same as the causes of COVID fatigue. COVID fatigue is something that has been, that arises from this situation that has been imposed upon us. However, the good thing is that we can use the same tools that I have developed to help my clients who are suffering from compassion fatigue or burnout to deal with the COVID fatigue as well. So I saw a question. I don't know what we should do. Sorry, Sean. Should I take questions as we go or at the end?
No, I think let's take them at the end. It's just useful for you to continue with your presentation.
Okay, cool. All right, excellent. Okay, so I don't know if you have heard of compassion fatigue, but it is a very real thing and many books have been written about it. And basically what it is we call it the cost of caring, because it's a response to the ongoing stress of caring for others. And even though teachers, or educators, most of the world doesn't necessarily see the job or the role of an educator as being a caring role, we who are educators know that actually a large part of our work is in caring. And it is very exhausting and there is a big cost associated with it. So it is an emotional, physical, and or spiritual exhaustion. And I've written spiritual with a capital S because our spirit is tired. It's not a kind of a religious exhaustion. It's our spirit is tired, which arises from caring for people particularly people in significant emotional pain and or physical distress. In a perfect world, I don't think that educators would be dealing with people in significant emotional pain or physical distress, but generally in this country, I think the vast majority of our learners are in significant emotional pain or physical distress, hungry, you know, what troubles at home, all of those things that I don't need to explain to you. And certainly at the moment, I think that that is particularly heightened. I really think that our children are bearing the brunt of the lockdown and of this pandemic that we are dealing with as well. So anyone who is in any way caring for people who are suffering, anyone who is doing that role is in danger of developing this emotional, physical, and spiritual exhaustion that defines compassion fatigue. And so Figley's, the quote is that we become exhausted by the exposure to experience after experience of emotionally draining clients who look to us for help. And this quote really is from it's from a textbook that is written for therapists and counselors, because compassion fatigue was, the term was developed to describe what therapists and counselors experience when they are just exhausted after hearing so much drama and trauma from their clients. But I think that it is equally applicable, as I said, to educators. So what happens when we have compassion fatigue? Our ability to enjoy and feel satisfied with our lives in all areas is compromised. So it's not just that our work starts to feel a little less enjoyable than usual, or we're not enjoying our friendships so much, or we're not enjoying gym or the normal sports that we do so much. It really colors every single area of our lives. Everything begins to feel less meaningful and less rewarding. And I think that the COVID fatigue, which we are all experiencing as well, does that also. So right now, I would argue that people who are experiencing compassion fatigue are also experiencing COVID fatigue. And so we have got a bit of a double whammy of this fatigue. So if you are feeling particularly challenged in regards to these symptoms that I'm going to be explaining to you, then that is why. And you aren't going crazy, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's an entirely appropriate response to the situation that we are finding ourselves in at the moment. So as I say, what used to feel meaningful and exciting often begins to feel quite pointless and boring because we just don't have the energy for it. If left untreated, compassion fatigue can cause burnout, anxiety, and ultimately depression. When we have burnout, it's a feeling of having nothing left to give. So compassion fatigue is on the way to burnout, but it's not quite there yet. Burnout it's a very serious illness, and I'm sure all of you know that it last year was finally recognized by the World Health Organization as a legitimate illness, and it has its own ICD-10 code. That is how serious it has become. Lots of people ask me to explain to them what is the difference between burnout and depression, because often they get confused, largely because their presenting symptoms are often so similar. And so my way of differentiating between burnout and depression is that they're both a kind of exhaustion. But when we are burnt out, we are exhausted from life. And when we are depressed, we are exhausted of life. So burnout makes us tired from life. Depression makes us tired of life. Just want to say right now that often compassion fatigue goes into burnout, and untreated then goes into can progress into depression. If anybody who is listening to this or knows anybody who is suffering from depression, i.e. feeling tired of life, I really want to encourage you to seek help immediately. And there are many amazing organizations that provide support in this country. The one that springs to mind is SADAG, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, free 24-hour counseling. I cannot stress enough how importantly you need to take it if you or anybody you know is feeling tired of life. Please, I really do want to encourage you to act on that as quickly as possible. If we don't stop compassion fatigue or burnout in its tracks, then the symptoms worsen. And they include things like, these are the symptoms that you can identify easily. We have emotional symptoms. We get very irritable. We get quite sad. We worry. At the moment with COVID fatigue, I think that all our responses are being very amplified. So what used to make us feel slightly irritable can now send us into a rage immediately. What used to make us feel sad can now really make us feel overwhelmed with emotion and sadness. And what used to make us worry a little bit is turning into like a debilitating concern about the future. In terms of our physical symptoms, often people with compassion fatigue or burnout experience headaches, fatigue, digestive ailments. And that fatigue is something that it's quite difficult to define, although if you have it or have had it, you will recognize it. It's waking up in the morning after a full night's sleep, but feeling completely unrefreshed. It's feeling totally exhausted after a very minor exertion, either physical or mental. It's coming home from work or in these times, stopping work and moving into another space in your house and just collapsing on the couch and not being able to do anything other than stare mindlessly at the television. It's a very, very bone-weary kind of fatigue. In terms of our social experience, our motivation is reduced, as I said, so we're not nearly as enthusiastic about things anymore. We become socially isolated and we withdraw from relationships. I often say that when we have burnout or full-blown compassion fatigue, we are right back down on Maslow's first level of his hierarchy of needs. And so all we have got the energy for is surviving. We don't have extra energy for relationships, for doing things that we used to do that used to feel exciting and interesting to us. And so we aren't motivated, we isolated and we withdrawn. And then, of course, now with COVID over and above that, of course, we socially isolated and withdrawing from our relationships because we're not allowed to do social things. We're not allowed to see family and friends, etc. And so it's hard to know what is the cause and what is the effect. But I do just want to say that social isolation and withdrawal from relationships, it's a vicious circle. It's not a double-edged sword, it's a vicious circle, because the more withdrawn we become, the harder it is for us to reach out. And we really do need to keep a careful eye on that. Other symptoms include anger, as I said, depression, as we've discussed, insomnia. People often struggle to sleep. And just also with COVID, it's one of the things that people are reporting more and more is struggling to sleep and having terrible nightmares. So again, COVID fatigue, compassion fatigue, burnout, all different forms of the same thing, but with different genesis. Anxiety, feeling anxious all the time, worrying, feeling hypervigilant, feeling scared of kind of generic what's going to happen in the future, but also anxiety in a more immediate way. And I think, again, back with the COVID, there is so much ambient anxiety at the moment. It's very hard to step away from all the anxiety. Turn on the television, there's terrifying statistics and terrifying images of people hungry, people sick, people struggling. You go to the shops and everywhere you go there, people are wearing masks. If you're back at school and the kids have come back to school, you know, taking the temperatures, the sanitizing, the masks, every single minute of every single day, we are being reminded that there is this big, terrifying thing out there. And so it's no wonder that our anxiety is off the charts at the moment, which is exhausting. We are physically exhausted from being anxious. We are physically exhausted from surviving this terrible pandemic. And also, if we have compassion fatigue, that in and of itself is also tiring and physically exhausting. So sadly, some people turn to self-medicating to manage the anxiety and the depression and the insomnia. And so they start to drink a little bit more than they should. They're taking sleeping pills, they're taking pain medication, and sometimes, you know, not over-the-counter medication. And that is something that we also really need to be paying attention to, because once you go onto that kind of treadmill of substance abuse, then we really, it's very, very hard, because now you are dealing with a whole lot of issues. You're dealing with the compassion fatigue or the burnout or the COVID fatigue, and then also the substance abuse and the addiction that your body is going through. So really, I would like everybody to try and intervene on themselves before we get to this point. Also, breakdown of relationships. Because of the social withdrawal, because of the irritability, the anger, the depression, the insomnia, all of these things, often people tend to withdraw from their relationships, or they get very confrontational. There's a lot of resentment. And so often there is a breakdown of relationships. I always say that if we don't treat compassion fatigue or burnout, it can progress into diabetes and depression and divorce. Diabetes is one of them because, and I'll get to this just now, but because we tend to crave sugary, carby, caffeine-laden foods just to get us through the days, that is one of the leading contributors to diabetes. Inability to function normally, increased and increasing illnesses. So, you know, if we used to just get a little sniffle, now it's a big cold. If we used to have a little cough, now we get bronchitis. If we used to need to take a couple of days off work just to recover, now we need a couple of weeks. This is the progression of these, of compassion fatigue into burnout if we don't intervene and take it seriously. So why do we get compassion fatigue? Well, anyone who cares for others in any capacity is in danger of developing compassion fatigue. So whether we are teachers, carers, therapists, coaches, counselors, whatever we do, if we're caring for others, we are in danger of developing compassion fatigue. We get compassion fatigue because we care. It's an occupational hazard. And we choose to do work that means that we are exposed to people who are experiencing varying degrees of pain and suffering. I always say to my clients and my groups that if you didn't care about people, if you didn't want to make things better for people, you wouldn't be doing the work that you are doing. If you weren't a very compassionate, empathic person, you would be, I don't know, working in a bank somewhere or something. Not that I have anything against banks or people who work there, but education really does attract people who want to make a contribution and want to make the world a better place. And so the kind of people who do this work that is so fatiguing are the ones who are also very sensitive to what we are experiencing, to experiencing the varying degrees of pain and suffering. It's our empathy that makes us both extremely good at what we do and also extremely sensitive and vulnerable to emotional overload and compassion fatigue. And again, just to remind you that this pandemic is an added layer of what is making your clients, i.e. the kids, your learners, sensitive and vulnerable. And also, you have to deal with both your immediate clients, who are the learners, and their parents. And so you have got like a double layer of client who are emotional and sensitive and needing reassuring and needing containing and being very demanding. The better we are at our jobs, the more vulnerable we are to compassion fatigue and burnout. But now that I've completely freaked you all out and you're feeling like you are never going to see the light of day again, don't despair. It is possible to be good at what you do and stay healthy and free from compassion fatigue, or recover from compassion fatigue or COVID fatigue. You just have to follow these 7 steps. I'm going to go through them quite quickly because I have a suspicion that there's going to be quite a lot of questions, if that's okay. So, step 1, ask for help. We are so bad at asking for help generally, but particularly people who are used to being the ones who are caring and being the helpers. We're not really great at being the helpees, but you really, if you are to make it through your career generally, and also this time, this pandemic time, you have to learn to ask for help. It doesn't have to be big help. It needs to be, you need to identify where it is that you ask for help. We are very bad at showing vulnerability. I always say to my clients that letting people help you is letting people love you. And I really honestly mean that. When people offer you help and you push it aside, it is a form of rejection. And when you ask people for help, you are giving them the opportunity to show you how much they appreciate you and how much they love you. So asking for help can be as simple as saying to one of your family members, please I'm going to sleep now for half an hour, please wake me up in half an hour and don't let anybody disturb me. Or it could be, I don't know how to get this Zoom call going, and phoning up one of your young family members and saying, please talk me through this. Or it can be speaking to your principal and saying, I am not coping, I need to go for counseling or whatever, and how can you help me to do that? But really we all need to learn how to ask for help. Number 2, set and maintain good boundaries. This is particularly hard at the moment for obvious reasons. Some of us are working from home, some of us are juggling childcare at home, doing our jobs, housework, etc. As I mentioned, it's very hard to maintain these boundaries, but it is so important. So if you are working from home and you no longer have your commuting time, and most of us now, we're just kind of rolling out of bed, getting dressed and starting work immediately. I really want to suggest to you that you recreate, in as far as you possibly can, the boundaries that you have in place in normal times. So if you used to have a 15-minute commute to school, give yourself 15 minutes just to have a cup of tea and to think about how you're going to ease into the day and do the thinking work that you would normally do in your car or in the taxi or wherever on your way to school. Do it in your own home on your way to your home office. When you have finished the school day, imagine that you are leaving school and you are walking away from school and you are then at home time. And the boundaries at the moment are so leaky because we all work. Some of us are working from home. There's no clear delineation between work and home, and we really need to bring that back. Also, that's from the COVID perspective. From the compassion fatigue perspective as well, you need to do that also. You cannot be on call 24 hours a day and not expect to get sick. So you really have to have very good boundaries about how you communicate with the parents, how you communicate with the learners. Setting and maintaining good boundaries is so critical. Step 3 is to have a healthy ecosystem. Your ecosystem, I'm sure there's some biology teachers on the call. An ecosystem is the way everything interacts with each other. It's like it's the micro environment within which you live. It's your relationships, it's your home, it's what you're eating, it's how your own personal health, it's the physical environment that you find yourself in, it's money, it's everything, it's every little element of your tiny little environment. Has to be in balance and as healthy as possible. If there is one thing that is out of balance, it's going to knock everything else off balance. Now, obviously, there is a huge thing that is out of balance at the moment, and that is the pandemic, which means that our whole every single person's ecosystem is off balance at the moment. We are completely destabilized by this. So the bits of your ecosystem that you can manage and that you can ensure are healthy, you really need to be paying extra attention to balance out the unhealthy bit of the pandemic and the fear and the anxiety and the uncertainty. So it is so important that you are having healthy relationships, that you are having healthy boundaries, that you are eating properly, that you are drinking enough water, that you are exercising, that you are doing all of the things that you know you need to do as a counterbalance to the extremely unhealthy time that we are finding ourselves in. And that is all part of practicing self-care. We really need to be lowering the expectations we have of ourselves and others. So I'm not saying do a bad job, but I'm saying just know that we are in very unusual times now, and don't expect to be able to do what you can do in normal times now in this extremely abnormal time. I think that is a very self-caring thing to do, to just be realistic about what you can achieve. Make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure you're asking for help, make sure you are taking time for yourself every day, eating properly, sleeping enough, all of those things that we know about. Give yourself some breaks. That's what I'm doing. Next week, I'm going on a 2-week holiday in my garden. I'm going to my garden route. We need to give ourselves some breaks. It's July. It's midway through July. Who here has had a proper break? I'm prepared to bet none of you, because you've all been figuring out how to rescue the academic year, which is great. I'm very grateful to you for it, but you must give yourself some breaks. You've got to stop working at 5 o'clock, say, in the afternoon, and not work again until the next day. You've got to have your weekends. You've got to have some long weekends. You've got to have some holidays. You have to. Otherwise, you are going to get sick. No human being can work without breaks for a very long time before they start getting sick. Step 6, planning. Honestly, if you can make a plan for your day, for your week, for your month, I find it very containing, because when you have a plan, then you are more likely to stick to it. So if, for instance, you know that you have got a menu plan for the week for suppers, on Monday we're going to have this, Tuesday we're going to have that, Wednesday we're going to have that, then you don't have to think about it. Then you know that's what's going to happen. If you don't have a plan, you finish work on Monday night and suddenly you realize you haven't thought about what you're going to have for supper, and that's when you go and you throw a packet of microwave popcorn in the microwave and that's what you have for supper. Planning is self-care. From menus down to when you're going to be doing your, down to lesson plans, and educators are so good at planning for our learners. We all know how to do lesson plans. We need to do life plans. We need to do self-care plans as well. And the last one is be you. Don't pretend to be something you aren't. Don't pretend not to be anxious if you are anxious. Don't pretend to be coping if you're not coping. Don't pretend to be stronger than you really are. You have to allow yourself to be who you are, to be authentic, to ask for help if you need it, to take a break when you need it, all of those things. Because when you resist who you really are, that is when you start to get burnout. So I just want to give you my spanner, which is a tool. It's a daily tool that you can do to put all of these things together. But before I forget, I want to say to you that on my website, there is a free 7-day e-course, which talks about the spanner in more detail. And every day you will get one of these emails, which expands on it, which you can go and sign up to with the greatest of pleasure. Also on my I don't know if it's somewhere on my website, and if you can't find it, just drop me an email, but please do it before I go on holiday or after I'm back from my holiday. These 7 steps that I've been talking about, I speak about them in a little free PDF I've created called a survival guide for people who care. And you are very welcome to get that as well. It's a little PDF, it's 13 pages. If it will help you, that's entire, please feel free to do that. All right, so here's my spanner, just quickly. So it's 7 steps. If you do these 7 steps every single day, you will feel better immediately, and you will be looking after yourself for the future also. So the S is for self. You need to find and honor yourself through self-care, self-love, and self-compassion. So we have a tendency, those of us who look after other people all the time, to be what I call others-centered, which means we put everybody else first and ourselves last. And we really need to put ourselves first sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. We need to look after ourselves. Those 3 questions that we started the session with, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What am I going to do about it? Those are a very quick and easy way for you to check in with yourself and to give yourself what it is that you need. The P is for peace. We all need quiet time. We need time to rest, to relax, to meditate, to journal, to sleep, to pray, to whatever it is that you want to do. But I recommend to my clients that you find 20 minutes every single day to be doing nothing. You're not talking to anybody other than yourself or God. You're not listening to anybody other than yourself or God. You can journal, you can pray, as I say, you can go for a gentle walk, you can have a bath, you can nap, you can have a cup of tea and listen to the birds, but do it alone, please, to connect with yourself. And those 3 questions are a good time to ask that. The A is for asking and accepting. As I've said about help, you can make your life so much easier when you allow yourself to ask for and to receive anything, help, love, advice, compliments, feedback, anything else positive that is offered, but especially help. The first N is for nourish. So to nourish your body, your mind, and your soul by eating nourishing food, thinking nourishing thoughts, and doing nourishing things. As I said, we tend to crave the unhealthy food now, and now's the time we need the healthy food. The N is for no. Overwhelm is caused by having too many things on our plate. And remember that a no to someone else is a yes to you, and also that no is a full sentence. So we really need to learn to say no to things that don't serve us. No to working 24 hours a day. No to spending, up till 2 o'clock in the morning watching Netflix series and then being exhausted the next day. No to microwave popcorn for supper. E is for exercise. Exercise lets oxygen in and stress out. It releases adrenaline, gets the blood flowing. It helps you to sleep better and improves your appetite for healthy food. So, and also with COVID, they are saying to us we need to be in the sunshine every day and we need to exercise every day. And lastly, the R is for relationships. As I said, we need to reinvest in our relationships. We need to pay them the time and attention and effort that they and we deserve. So if you do that spanner every day, and it doesn't have to be 7 separate steps, you can do it all at once. So say, for instance, you go for a gentle walk for 20 minutes, you're exercising and you're having your peace at the same time. You are asking yourself those 3 questions and checking in with yourself. You are figuring out where you can ask for help and who you're going to ask from. You are figuring out what you're going to feed yourself and what relationships you're going to be reconnecting with, and you're going to be figuring out what you can say no to. So you can do it all in one go in 20 minutes every day. Perfect. Okay, and that was it. Sorry, I was racing to the end there because I'm sure some of you have got questions. So let me stop sharing and I'll hand over to you, Sean. Oh my goodness, look what was going on. Oh my word. Sorry, yeah, I'm yours now to answer questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And just an open invitation to everyone to write your questions down. Try and keep them short and easy just to read. And I'll ask the questions of Judy. Judy, there were just really 2 things that stood out for me. And the first was just the concept of checking in with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think we're not very good at doing that, or we lie to ourselves, and the thought that came to my mind is that, and you mentioned it quite a few times, is just to be real and absolutely honest. And that hopefully will cause us then to do something about what we're feeling. But I think as teachers and as leaders, we often are in the spotlight, and we don't want to be seen to be weak. So we kind of put the mask on, and we play the game. Yet deep down, we're really struggling, and we're struggling with what you've been mentioned. So I like that concept, and perhaps it becomes a habit for us, is to really honestly check in with ourselves. And then I just the comment that I thought of when the 7 steps that you've indicated, they're actually quite simple. It's not difficult. It's just straightforward. You know, it's the kind of advice we'll give to the kids. You know, when we're teaching the children, yet we're not always good at doing it ourselves. You know, this really is a very simple concept. So you made sense to me, and I certainly learned a couple of things that I'm going to have to talk to Kathy about, and we're going to have to sort out as we go along. So let's go through a couple of questions. We've got about 10 minutes to go. I'll just read it to you. Should I be considering professional help is the question. When I'm work, I'm happy, active, and well. Once I get home, I get sad and break down into tears for stupid things, really, and very sick with the different symptoms. When I get up in the morning, most of the symptoms are gone.
So you could, I mean, it doesn't sound like depression, because if you were depressed, then you wouldn't be able to hold it together at work the way it sounds as though you are holding it together. So it doesn't sound like depression to me, although it does sound as though you've got a lot of emotional overwhelm from carrying your work and your kids. And that does feel like it's a bit overwhelming to you. So it might be useful to get some counseling or something so that you can learn how to put down those worries. But it doesn't feel to me as though it's depression. But having said that, the sooner you kind of find someone and find the support, the less chance there is that it will develop into depression.
Thank you. That's very good. I also got another question. Do you have any kind of questionnaire available that you can help? Possibly this comes from one of the leaders of our schools, maybe for their staff. Is there something that you've got available that we can help with?
Yeah. I do have a questionnaire, as it turns out, that I developed especially for educators. So yes, I can send that to you with pleasure.
Okay, so you'll send it to us, and then we'll make it available on the site, on the website. So that would be a good idea. And this next question is kind of related to that. What is the best and workable approach to help those that are unknowingly suffering from compassion fatigue? And I know that because often people who are suffering from burnout or compassion fatigue don't admit it, but others around them can see it. So what would be the strategy?
Well, so what I do is I actually, so this might be something for you. I was talking to you about this earlier, Sean. You know, people who are very resistant to the idea of showing weakness, it is quite hard to get them to take this seriously. So if you can repackage it in a different way, and here is the way I would suggest, I have got a whole educator resilience program that has been SACE approved for 16 CPD points. But that was with some in-person workshops. They're amending it now. But I would suggest that you say to this person or these people, here is a development opportunity for you. You get CPD points. It's not the same old fire, first aid, fire safety kind of thing that so many people use to get their CPD points. And they will learn all about this, and they'll get some really useful tools on communication skills and time management and figuring out how to make a healthy ecosystem, all of those things. So I would say something like that. So package it as an opportunity for general learning rather than specific self-care. Yeah.
I think the point is simple. I mean, Judy, doesn't have to be what you're promoting, but there's just so much stuff available. You know, we live in an online world. You know, and I think that the bottom line is asking for help, seeking the help, and then responding to it. You know, the Bible says you don't only read the Bible, do it what it says. Exactly. So we know it, but we just got to do it.
Absolutely. And on that point, I think we need to show leadership, you know. So if we are saying to our staff or to our colleagues, I've got compassion fatigue, I need help, then it gives them that, then you're giving them the permission to do the same as well.
Yeah. Very good. I've got another question. I do struggle to take time out for myself as a principal, as the pressure of ensuring everyone else is cared for is way more important. How do I get this across to some difficult parents?
You know what, I think that there's showing and there's telling, and I think that we can tell parents to honor our boundaries and to take us seriously as much as we like, but if they're not going to listen to what they don't want to hear. So we need to show them as well. And so I really think that we need to be quite ruthless about turning off our phones after hours, turning off our emails after hours, and showing them and only responding during working hours. And then, you know, if they send you a WhatsApp at 3 o'clock in the morning, do not respond until 8 o'clock. You need to show them about your boundaries.
Yeah. Now, I think that's easier said than done, because I've been there, done that. Because a large part of our job, and I think I'm putting my foot in it a bit, is we're trying to keep everyone happy to a large extent, and I think
at
that's
our own expense.
Yes, I know, that's the problem. Yeah, I agree with you fully.
That is the problem.
Okay,
And the problem is those parents are going to be much more upset with you if you have to book 6 months off work because you've reached a point of absolute overwhelm and exhaustion than if they have to wait 12 hours to get a response from you.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a couple more very interesting questions. How do you decide when to stop when you feel that the next thing to be done is still important?
Again, I think that's where planning comes in, because otherwise it's just the goalposts keep moving. So if you sit down every day and you say, by the end of the day, I want to have finished X, Y, and Z, then when you have finished X, Y, and Z, stop. Write a list for tomorrow that might include A, B, and C that have emerged during the course of the day. But that planning, we have to plan.
Yeah. No, I agree. It does come down to that plan, because, you know, your desk is never really empty. There's always something to do.
Absolutely.
And I loved your suggestion that we need to plan in our day time for ourselves.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. A very interesting question, and I'm interested to hear how you answer this one, Judy. Is depression not part of our lives, considering some outstanding Bible characters, what they went through, like King David and Elijah? So is it a normal part of our lives? Should we accept it as part of our lives?
You know what, I think that feeling concerned or feeling sad or sometimes feeling a bit of an emotional burden is quite a common part of our lives. But I think an actual clinical depression where you are feeling like you just cannot carry on anymore is not and should not and does not have to be part of our lives. And certainly it's very, well, not very, but relatively easy to get help so that you don't have to be dragging yourself around feeling depressed all the time.
Yeah. Another question, we will have time for 2 more. Can compassion fatigue be classified as some form of mental illness?
I don't think it's a mental illness. I don't think it's being classified. It doesn't have its own ICD code. But it is one of the forms of burnout. So although I don't think compassion fatigue has it, burnout does. And it is kind of one of the flavors of burnout. So I would say, rather than calling it compassion fatigue, regard it as burnout. And then absolutely, it is an illness, definitely.
Yeah, I think we underestimate the effects of it. Again, and that's a very important concept. Okay.
And if I just may say on that, my husband had severe burnout, didn't do anything about it, even though obviously he didn't listen to me. It developed into type 2 diabetes. And now we've got a COVID pandemic, and diabetes is one of the highest risk factors for people. That is why I am so absolutely passionate about making sure that people do not get burnout, because if we don't address it, it develops into worse things, and then we are in real trouble. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox and let you ask a few more questions.
Oh gosh, this is a good relationship one. How do I overcome the thinking from my husband that if I say no to doing certain things, I'm no longer a submissive wife, when in fact I'm actually feeling exhausted?
Well, maybe you need to try and speak to him about it and say, it's not that I don't want to, not that I don't want to do what makes you happy, but I'm actually just too tired. Maybe you need to be honest about how tired you are and what you need as well. Yeah.
I think that's the reality, is that, you know, part of relationship building is having the honest conversation with one another,
absolutely,
to be able to describe where we're at. And
absolutely, yeah.
I think I find that tough, but it's such an important, because then your first point of call for love and support would actually be your spouse. I would like to think. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm hoping there are a lot of leaders, school leaders out there, and that you would also be in that space where you share your concern for the teachers. I know that school leaders are really, in that survival mode of just trying to keep the school going and have huge expectations of teachers. And I just pray that you would see your teachers really with those eyes that can just see the pain and the struggle deep within, and recognize. I loved the concept that you mentioned, Judy, just about celebrating ourselves and honoring ourselves, but honoring one another as well is also part of the process going forward.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. There were some other questions. Can you just remind us? I didn't have your website address. Judy, what is your website address?
Okay, so my website address is judyklippin.com. So it's JUDYKLIPIN.com. And on that, you can find the 7-day e-course. You can also send me an email through there if you want to. And just again, the spanner I just briefly saw. So it's S is for self, P is for peace, 20 minutes of quiet every day. A is for asking and allowing. N is for nourishing your body, mind, and soul. The second N is for saying no to things that aren't serving you. E is for exercise. R is for relationships.
Excellent. And then there was also a question about that free 7-day e-course that you're doing. That's also available on your website.
Yes. So all you have to do, if you sign up for my newsletter, which I'm very happy for you then to unsign up from if you want to, then you immediately get the free 7-day e-course. Just if you go onto my website and play around with it, you'll see. If you can't see it immediately, go to the tag that says online courses, and then you'll see the 7-day e-course there as an option for you.
Okay. I can recommend Judy's newsletter. I receive it on a regular basis, and there are always little gems that just keep reminding me to be real and to look after myself. So Judy, on behalf of everyone, just want to say thank you. We've had a wonderful turnout today, and I'm just hoping and praying, as I said at the beginning, that this will just be a great reminder for teachers. Teachers are doing an amazing job and are really keeping things going, but that we need our teachers to be strong. And often there's a good old saying that the only one that can really do something about you is you. And I love your slogan that you've got on your letterhead. It says, say yes to you. And that may sound selfish for many of us because we're so much in the giving space. But teachers, you need to say yes to you. You need to look after yourselves. The Lord needs you to be as strong as you can every day, to be there for the children, to be there for your schools. And if you fall down, as Judy mentioned, that's not helpful. So may this time, as we go into still an uncertain future, may you take good care of yourself. And it's not difficult. Judy's given us some good practical advice. Judy, may the Lord bless you. May you have a good holiday. Switch your phone off and do all those things that you need to do. Thank you for this time and your generosity of just being here. To all the attendees out there, get hold of Judy, her emails. I'll put the slides on the screen again for a couple of minutes after this. The email, go to her website, make contact. Some of the leaders out there, you may want to invite Judy after a holiday to come and speak to your staff and just keep reminding us on how to cope with not only the COVID fatigue, but the compassion fatigue, which is very much part of us as teachers. And then everyone.
Sorry, Sean, can I just say one more thing? If you go onto my website, there's also my blog, and there are quite a few blogs that people might find useful to read at this point also.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Judy. I appreciate you very much. To everyone, keep an eye on the future webinars that we're hosting. Keep an eye on the parent one, and please advertise that in your schools. We're hoping just to give some parents some skills and some strategies of how to keep the family going and how to keep their kids going well. God bless you all. Keep your heads up. Keep doing a wonderful job. And we'll see you again soon. Much love. Thanks again, Judy.